Hi, my name is Barry Vandenberg, and this is assignment 4 for AEP 855, Inclusive Leadership. I researched the internet and found a couple of pretty good articles, one by Simon Lieberman, the title of which was, "Are You Practicing These Inclusionist Leadership Behaviors?" And I'm only going to talk about 3 of the 10 total that she wrote about. And then I found another article on it's a Berlitz series by someone named Malini, and I don't know how to pronounce it, Yanakarim, entitled "Inclusive Leadership Critical for a Competitive Advantage." That one stressed that diversity and inclusion are two entirely different things. It talked about globally competitive organizations having highly diverse workforces, particularly on a linguistic and cultural level. Talked about self-awareness, and it gave some agility skills and some other practical application tips, and I'll go over those in the next few slides. In the first article, it talked about 3 ways to be an inclusive leader, one of which was get to know your employees every day. She said, don't do this just on social occasions, but every day make it a point to interact with the people that work for you. Now, the second bullet was, don't be afraid to learn from hourly employees. And even though you might be the boss, every one of those people knows something that you do not. And the third inclusive behavior for leadership, according to her, was to take responsibility for educating those who missed the mark. And I like this one the best probably of all of them. And basically it says these people work for you, and if they are not being inclusive, if you see exclusive behaviors going on, call them out and educate them, and do that fearlessly. The next article talked about a lot of things in the global economy and in the global competitiveness, but it drilled down 4 key skills for cultural agility. And one of them was cultural due diligence. And the point of that one was to thoroughly assess the effects of culture in professional relationships. Thoroughly assess the effects of culture in professional relationships basically means to, give it a lot of thought. Look at who your employees are, who they're interacting with, who you've got teamed up with who, and make sure that you know what the effects of the culture of their cultural differences might be. People who are culturally agile should be able to engage in style switching, which is sometimes referred to as code switching, and that is being able to use a flexible set of behaviors to communicate and influence other people. So it doesn't necessarily mean you pander or cater to some particular group, but you are flexible enough in your approach, and that you can adapt your behaviors to the people you're interacting with. Cultural dialogue, basically that just means to talk about culture, learn about the details of someone's culture, and know that the details are important and can help other people understand the differences between them and their coworkers. And the 4th key skill for cultural agility was cultural mentoring, and that goes back to calling people out. Be the model for inclusive behavior. Fearlessly educate those who work for you, and when you see someone acting in a non-inclusive way, you call them out and you educate them. Practical application, there were several of these. I'm going to go through, there's about 10 of them. The first one was, this is for everyday practiced in a leadership position. One was check yourself, challenge your own assumptions, listen to what you're saying, and make sure that you don't have any of the, if you do have some of the prejudicial attitudes that you are trying to mitigate, make sure that you yourself aren't displaying them. The second one was assume positive intent in everything. And that basically just said have a positive attitude when interacting with your employees. Go to every meeting with a win-win attitude. Make sure everybody has a chance to win, and everybody gets treated the same way. The third one was think before you speak. And the point there was to develop listening skills so that you could learn from other cultures. And when you're talking to someone who isn't from the United States or the Midwest or who's white or who has a master's degree, that you listen to them and hone those skills so you can learn from them. Now the fourth one was watch groups and social dynamics for exclusion behaviors, and you have to stop these immediately. This is part of the mentoring process. So the clique around the water cooler or the committees that might be part of a school district or a school, you have to watch those groups and how they interact with one another and look for exclusionary behavior. This is a continuation of the previous slide. Treat everyone as your right-hand person. Be aware that there is a pecking order in most social groups, and make sure you don't reinforce it. The person who's on a personal improvement plan should be treated the same way as your number one employee, or at least given the same degree of respect and treated with dignity. The second bullet is improve your own self-awareness and be honest with yourself. If you react a certain way when you see something culturally, know that about yourself and don't be afraid to change it. Third bullet is learn non-judgmentally and encourage others to do the same. So when you learn something that might be bizarre in your mind about another culture, try not to be judgmental about it and try to have an open mind and realize that we live in a very small part of the larger picture known as the earth. Be open and honest with others about their behavior, and this goes back to educating others and being a mentor, and call them out if you see exclusionary behavior. And this doesn't apply just to cultures, but it applies to personalities as well. And the last bullet here under practical applications is to be the example, and that goes back to it's a leadership trait, it's a mentoring practice, and if anyone is going to exhibit inclusive behavior, and if anyone is going to call out exclusive behavior, it should be you. From the course research, there were 5 pillars or 5 basic attributes of inclusiveness. Race or non-race. Someday I think I would like to see a day when race is not even a consideration in anything. Class includes education, income, and background. We need to make sure that we aren't grouping people by those demographics unless it's absolutely necessary. Access to facilities, equipment, and opportunity being promotions and FaceTime with the boss, opportunities to participate with the other employees and to be on committees and to be on various teams that you might establish. Gender should be irrelevant. Gender statement should be stricken from your vocabulary. Gender references should not be used. You can't have an inclusive environment if you're talking about gender. Equity implies ownership, belonging, being part of the team. So equity is another important part of inclusive leadership, making sure everyone feels the same degree of equity, at least in as they understand their role on the team. There are some challenges to change. One of the challenges is people that are already in your organization. You have to know who those people are, and you have to help them get better in being inclusive. Another challenge is people who have influence on your organization. You might have people who donate money to you. You might have people who sponsor your activities. You might have people who help you network. You have to know who those people are, and you have to be aware of their cultural or inclusive sensitivities. Another challenge is lack of self-awareness and sensitivity. And I can't tell you how many people I've met, and I include myself in this, who just don't know that they have certain notions about certain people and certain things, and they're completely unaware of it. So that's an important one. These are three big challenges to change. So in conclusion, I will say that I believe inclusion in the workforce is not negotiable anymore. Those who can do it well will win if it's a business type environment. In education, it's the same way. They will have better teams if they're inclusive. Exclusion is simply wasting talent. You might have, you can't afford to waste talent. It is not a desired leadership practice. And anymore, in today's world, there are real consequences for exclusionary practices. If you are caught discriminating against someone for just about any reason, you can be held accountable. And that is good, but you don't want to get caught off guard. So people need to understand that there are real consequences for exclusionary practices. We see it all the time. People leave their microphones open, say things that are racist or sexist or culturally insensitive, and they get in trouble for it. And they have to pay the piper, and they have to apologize. And there's much worse consequences than that from being exclusionary in your approach. I kind of, when I started this presentation or started the research for it, I kind of thought that educational leadership was a little bit different, maybe somehow, than just plain old leadership, but I'm realizing that it isn't. And I will also say that I think we in the education field could be real examples for people in business and people in industry and people in government and other civic organizations. And that is the end of my presentation.